What's up, everybody, and welcome to my ranking of all 9 Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. If you've not reviewed them yet, I've reviewed every single one of them, all 9 films. So if you hadn't checked those out yet, please do so. I'll have them in the link down below. I'll be covering each and every single one of these films, starting from worst to best. And believe me, there's been highs and lows in this franchise. So starting off with number 9, the worst of the worst, lowest of the lowest. And of course, you can already guess which one I'm going to say. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, which is part 4. Now, this is a film where, to this day, I have no idea why it was made. It was lazy. It was not scary. We have a Leatherface that is basically a whiny man-child throughout the whole entire thing. They give him this transvestite type character about him that holds no merits to the character. You basically have him do like, you sit the F down. That's all you ever get from him. And he doesn't even use his chainsaw in this. As I said for the review of this film, it's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Not even with Matthew McConaughey, which I hear some praises, but I didn't really get into him either. The only thing that kind of saves it is Renee Zellweger, even though I said that she's not really one of those actresses that appears on my radar, and she was fair in this film. She did kind of, save it a little bit. Plus, there was a moment in the first act where the atmosphere was kind of creepy when the kids was walking around in the woods before they ran into the family, and the tension was building up, which I guess was sort of cool, but that's up for debate. But as far as the whole film goes as a whole, no. The whole dumbass Illuminati storyline where they control this character, it's been done before and it did not work at all. This was a film that just should not have been made. It was very forgettable. Moving on. Moving on to number 8 is Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Now, this is one that I have reviewed before I did this film review series, which I did held it up high then, but opinions have changed. And I did find this to be a little boring. It was a little generic for a horror film. It was way different than what I viewed it before. Leatherface was fine. He didn't look all that bad, especially over 4. It was definitely a lot better than what they did in 4. It wasn't terrible. I did like the family in this. They had this way about them where everything they were doing they thought was just normal, and the rest of society was like, no, you're screwed up. I did like that, but it was pretty generic. And it was a little boring, and they cut a lot down from the gore. And other than that one scene when that girl got sawed up on that tree, and the unrated version, you could see the blood, but you don't hardly see anything. It was dark, but it was a little bland, admittedly. Coming in at number 7 is Texas Chainsaw 3D. Now, this is one of those where they were trying to start over with a clean slate. And is actually a direct sequel to the original, even though we just got one here recently. They tried to do this in 2013 with Texas Chainsaw 3D. It was fine. The way Leatherface was portrayed was good. I liked the way he perceived the character, the guy that played him in this. This was basically a film that I praised at first. But then I started noticing all these stupid continuity errors with the phones and this whole family squabble that they threw out. Now, this is a movie that's supposed to be set in the 90s. And they had these continuity errors, first of all, with the phones and everything. They just kept on throwing it in your face. So I guess they were able to develop a technology to go forward in time to get technology and bring it back to the 90s. I don't know. That whole thing there. And this whole family squabble between the Sawyers and this Carson's family, which to me, I just think it took a lot away from Leatherface personally. It just took away the icon that was Leatherface. Plus this whole thing where they play off as the townspeople being the real villain and Leatherface being held up as this hero. Nope, not gonna fly. That just doesn't fly at all. Plus, you got some crappy characters, which I cared nothing about. Not even the main character of Alexander Daddario. I did not care for her either. The only thing positive, like I said, I could say about this is Leatherface. Just the way he presented the character. And there was some blood and gore, but other than that, a movie as a whole, nah, not really the best. Coming in at number 6 is Leatherface, the 2017 prequel to This World, which is the prequel to the original and Texas Chainsaw 3D. Now, this is a movie where I didn't really mind. You know, a lot out there other than Cody Leach, which is another YouTuber I follow. He's pretty cool. You should check his channel out. I didn't really have a problem with it. I like the whole direction that they took with it. It's not your basic Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. These characters that basically escape from this mental asylum that kidnaps this nurse, and Leatherface being amongst them. And they go on this bloody road trip / like just going across the country and creating chaos. I like the whole, Bonnie and Clyde thing that some of the characters, especially the two main honchos, was. They kind of sent out that vibe towards me. However, they tried to pull this who Leatherface card is. They did this whole 180 situation where they threw in this big, bulky, mentally unstable character where you could easily peg him as Leatherface. But if you're making a storyline where they try to keep the mystery alive, we know who Leatherface is, what his personality is, what his mental stability is, they couldn't really do that. But the way that they did this, when they actually revealed who Leatherface is, it felt very rushed. Sam Strike, who has been the most sane out of them all throughout this whole entire film, you're expecting us to believe that somebody that seems that stable could go from this sane person that's trying to protect this girl from these other loony bins, turns in from being a savior of this girl to this complete whacked out, screwed up character that is Leatherface. I never really bought that. It just felt really rushed, and whenever, just the way they executed it, they could have added on an extra 15-20 minutes just to give itself time to breathe, but they didn't. It is what it is. Plus, you get nothing in Stephen Dorff's character, who's bland, just comes off as a douche, and basically holds no merits whatsoever. He just wasn't for me. Coming in at number 5 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, 1986. Now, this is one that I've always found to be the most comical. Of course, Tobe Hooper returned from the original to direct this, but you wouldn't know that this one's connected. It feels completely separate. Every single one of these films kind of does. The only ones that felt connected to each other is the Texas Chainsaw 3D universe and the Texas Chainsaw remakes. But this one felt so separate from each other. Of course, you've got a little bit of black comedy, but they upped it up to a 10 pretty much in this. You had some that was in the original, but the comedy in this, they upped it up. That was mostly due to Bill Moseley's character, Chop Top. He did throw out most of the funny lines, though he did get a little tiresome as the movie progressed. It did feel a little overdue. They overdid it a little bit. And the negatives I have with it is the whole Dennis Hopper character, which is supposed to be the uncle for one of the characters in the original. All he did in this film, in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, was basically go around the villain's lair, or this, what looked like like an abandoned circus, and just started sawing everything. He tried to help Caroline Williams' character out at one point and failed miserably. I didn't feel for this character. I just felt like he was a little useless. I know some of you out there kind of did praise his character, and don't get me wrong, I like Dennis Hopper. He's a great actor. I just felt like he kind of dropped the ball in this film, and I just didn't feel much use for him. Plus, with Leatherface again, that stupid signature move, which made him look stupid, it just came off as awkward and weird. And when he's horny for that girl, it's like, I want to do Caroline Williams. Oh, yeah. No, nope, that's not going to fly. Nope. Plus the whole dumbass dinner scene, which is, I know, supposed to be iconic, but they pushed it too much. It was mind-numbing at a certain point, especially with Grandpa trying to hit Caroline Williams' character with that hammer, and then showing the close-ups of him licking the little coat hanger that Chop Top would scratch his wound from, and it just got mind-numbing. I was just so ready to say, move on with it, please. Coming in at number 4 is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974. This is one that I've kind of held up high, but I've never really been that big of a fan of. I praise it for its shock value. It didn't really have that much blood and gore, but that's not always a bad thing. It's a good thing, actually. Especially for the time that's been released. But the shock value is what really counts in this. You know he's doing things to characters, but you don't really see it, which kind of keeps the mystery alive. And it keeps it iconic to a certain point. This is the one where it really made me appreciate Leatherface. Thank God I didn't start with The Next Generation. I started with this one. And it made me realize how good Gunnar Hansen was as Leatherface. He nailed it. Of course, you're always going to nail it in the classic, in the original. That's the one that sets up everything. That's the one that becomes the most iconic in the horror franchise, community. So I really praise Leatherface. I really praise Gunnar Hansen's portrayal of that character. But again, like with part 2, they went a little overboard with the dinner scene. There was a lot of screaming. There was a lot of close-up shots of Sally Hardisty's eyes. And it just got so mind-numbing that I was just really wanting to fast-forward it, but I didn't. Especially for this film review series. But it just got so mind-numbing, so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But again, it's a pretty iconic film. It's the thing that started us on this long journey, and I got a lot of respect for it. It is a classic. It's considered a classic, and true that is. Coming in at number 3 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake. Now, this is a universe I could get behind. This is one where I actually started paying attention to R. Lee Ermey, because he really stole his scenes in this film. He was a character within its own. He played the sheriff, where he's just deeply disturbed, he's a part of the family, but a lot of the scenes he was in, he nailed it. I didn't really know who to be frightened of the most, Leatherface or him. Just this whole universe. And the way Leatherface was introduced in this, it's been 9 years gap, but this is coming off of The Next Generation, which for a movie like the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this series definitely needed. It definitely needed a pick-me-up, especially after that crappy film. The only negative I have about it, the only con I have about it, is just the way the kids looked. They looked too Abercrombie. They looked too present. It's like they got clothes from the 90s and then switched back in time and brought it to the 70s. That's when this movie was set. This was set in the 70s, yet the kids looked like they were from the 90s. But other than that, it's a really good film. It's something that the series definitely needed at this point, especially after the disaster that was The Next Generation. Coming in at number 2 is the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Now, this is one that I was trying to have such low expectations, because it's one that's, first of all, it never got a theatrical release. It would have been nice. Second of all, it just went straight to streaming on Netflix, which is usually another red flag. But when I turned this on, wow, did it ever surprise me. First of all, you have another sequel that's a direct sequel to the original that negates everything that the Texas Chainsaw 3D universe did, which is all the better for it, because you don't have any of these stupid continuity tropes like with the phones and this stupid family squabble, which really took away from Leatherface for me. You don't have any of that. It's actually a good film. I don't know why everybody's so ticked off about it. I mean, it seems like it's getting harder and harder to satisfy the average horror film viewer, especially with an iconic character like this. You have this bus scene that's the most goriest out of every single one of these films. It kind of reminded me of the club scene from Hellraiser 3, where everybody was just getting slaughtered. It was just all a straight up bloodbath. The only con about it I have, though, which is 2, is the whole Sally Hardesty character. Did they really need to bring her back? To me, she never really was that important. She didn't do hardly jack. All she did was look at a picture of her dead friends from like 50 plus years ago and show up like a couple times. She wasn't even in that much. You could just re-edit this film and just cut her completely out of it, and it would have been fine. It was a good film, and I also wish they would have had it in theaters. In order for me to enjoy the jump scares, which there was plenty of, I had to watch it on the big screen up front on our 82-inch screen, turn the surround sound up, and then have a blast. And that's what I did, and it was better for it. But the theatrical experience would have completed me. And by default, coming in at number 1 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. Yes, it was a toss-up between the new one and The Beginning. You know, at first, I was thinking, okay, wait a minute. You can't praise something more on something just because you've just seen it for the first time. And I've always stuck by my guns with The Beginning. Now, this is a movie where you had more screen time with R. Lee Ermey. He was basically the main villain of this film. The one that kidnaps those kids, tortures them, and then leads them to Leatherface. And not to mention Leatherface. The guy that played him in this universe, and the remake, of course, because it's the same guy, he's the top for me. I know I said in my review for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film that it was going to be like hard for me to do a ranking of the Leatherfaces if I ever did one. But now doing this, now I can honestly say the guy that did Leatherface in the remakes, yeah, I'd choose him over the one in the new one. Yeah, very easily. He was so menacing. He was brutal. This whole film all around was just gritty. With the setting of the house being out in the middle of nowhere, just felt like you were trapped on an island with these people. Especially the way the family was. I honestly had no problem with Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the beginning. It was honestly one that I always held true to my heart, as I'm sure most of y'all do. And it's just one that I've never really had a problem with. It was bloody, it was gory, the characters were pretty good in it, and it's just something that I always got behind. This one's always, and probably forever will be, number 1 in my list. So that is it for my ranking, guys. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. What is your favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre films? What is your least to favorite? Leave me in the comment down below and just give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, again for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.